Welcome to the Zeducation podcast, where it's all about helping people and organizations unleash their greatness. Hosted by me, Pasitaua Haufano, and my brother, that's me, Kalolo Haufano. The Zeducation podcast features lively discussions.
When they share it, you see that they're beginning to feel empowered.
My heart, it's full of pride for me to be at Maitai Samoa.
As well as tips on leadership and business by some of the top minds and influencers around the world.
You don't necessarily need a degree these days. There's so many pathways to success.
Welcome to the Zeducation podcast. Awesome. So welcome to our podcast episode today. Welcome to the Zeducation podcast. Today we'll be talking about linking people capabilities to organizational strategy, hearing insights from co-founders Renata and Sandra Haufano, co-founders of Syncap. Syncap's people-centric framework helps businesses build a future-ready workforce and thrive by aligning their people capability strategy with organizational goals, leading to increased productivity, satisfaction, and a positive work culture for long-term success. Thank you for joining us on our podcast. How are you doing today?
Good. Really good. Thank you for having us.
Awesome. Well, hey, just to kind of kick things off, a little bit of an icebreaker question. Maybe share something interesting about yourselves that people don't normally know about.
So something that most people don't know about me would be that I've lived in the Philippines for almost 2 years and I can speak Tagalog, which is the native language of the Philippines.
Awesome. That's so cool that you know how to speak Tagalog. I'm sure that comes in handy every now and then, eh? That's awesome. What about you, Renata? Something interesting about yourself?
I would say people don't realise that I was brought up on a farm, and they don't realise that I'm not educated and have a formal education. So they get surprised and often ask about what degree I have. So I've been asked if I have an engineering degree, an accounting degree, an HR degree, an organisational management degree. There's lots of degrees that people think I have, but I actually have none, and they don't know that. Often don't know that. Yes. Yeah. I got asked the other day that same question. Yes. Yeah.
So a humble farm girl, obviously farm people, they work hard, but you're a smart cookie as well. I mean, otherwise people wouldn't want to work with you, right? Yeah. So you've got a wealth of experience and knowledge, and you've got like a history of success as well that you can leverage. So it's not like you're just a nobody.
No, not at all.
Yeah,
not at all,
exactly.
But not a formal education.
Yeah.
And I smile at that because I spent 2 years working at the university. And I was probably the only one that didn't have an education working on a big change program at the university.
That's so cool. Yeah. And what I love about that is that there's multiple ways to success.
Oh, yes.
You know, you don't always have the cookie cutter approach of going to university and that. So you can build that wealth of experience and knowledge over time.
Oh, yes. And I've loved learning. I love learning, and I've loved learning along the way. Really have. And I've been lucky enough to work with some amazing people that I've learned so much from. So, yeah. It all
Awesome.
that way.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Really interesting. Okay, so let's kick things off here. Let's talk about linking people capabilities to organizational strategy. I'm very excited about this. I think it's an issue that a lot of businesses struggle with. I mean, it's easy for business to come up with training programs. It can find problems, but how do you get ROI on people capability? And how do you link that to strategic goals, right? So that it matters. So my first question is, maybe introduce a little bit about yourself and provide an overview of Syncap's expertise.
Okay, a little bit about me and a little bit about Syncap and how we got to have Syncap. I think is that I have worked a long time, probably started my career in finance. Some people don't realise that, but I spent 10 years in a finance department and then moved on to change and transformation, and then spent, rest of my time doing change and transformation and working with people capability, designing operating models and structural designs for organisations. And that's all about people. And my background, as I said before, is a country background, and get in there and do the work and do it well. And Syncap has come out of a lot of interviews, a lot of listening, a lot of working with people and understanding and finding out what actually is their challenges in their business when it comes to people. And they all want to do good things. It's just how to do it or bring all of their great things together into one piece of work. And so Syncap was developed over a long time, over 20 years. I've been working on Syncap. So we only formalised the name of it because it was just getting to be used so much, but it's been in use a long time and it works. And I know that it works because as we implement it continually into businesses and see the results speak for themselves. And that's us. We are really very focused on helping businesses develop their people capability. In a nutshell, that's what we do.
And I think you've got a strong foundation in terms of your experience and your background. You said you've worked in finance, you've worked in different areas of different businesses, and especially with strategy when it comes to change management, and it's all about people. And so I think that's important, especially if you're trying to link people capabilities to business strategy as well. So it's important for you to understand, the guts of the business, the right. ROI from different departments, different areas, and how does people capability link to those different areas or get ROI from that. So I think that it makes sense in terms of Syncap. You've got this wealth of experience to back it up.
Yeah.
I have a bit of a different career pathway in comparison to Mum. So what I did, I like to call myself a serial entrepreneur. I love starting new businesses that really focus on people. And so from probably the age of about 23, so I think you and I have been in business for, a majority of our married life, so that's 7 years. Starting businesses, we've got Zeducation, we've got the Design Factory. And so a lot of my experiences come through startups, through setting up organizations, implementing all of that structure into a business, and then ensuring that the staff that we do have are engaged and are equipped with the tools to be able to complete the things that they need to. So that's a little bit about my experience. But my passion and also interaction with people capability came from a very young age. So as Mum was saying, the Syncap or the framework has been operating for close to 20 years. I remember as a teenager plotting all the data for these people capability scores. And at the time I didn't 100% know the impact that data has on the organisation. But that's what I used to do as a uni student. Doing the data, and then that grew. My interest in people capability grew through living in the Philippines. So earlier I mentioned that I can speak Tagalog. One thing that really motivated me to look at people capability was through growing to love people and see them grow and excel in whatever they could do. And I felt that when I was in the Philippines, it's a third world country, that if people they have such an amazing attitude, but if they had these skills or this cultivation wherever they worked or whatever they were doing, they could achieve so much more. And so Syncap for me is about people, and our mission, I would be remiss if I didn't share our mission, which is to place people at the heart of every organisation through innovative people capability tools and strategies. So that's what we're on a mission to do every day here at Syncap.
That's so cool. You both make a good team, and it sounds like you've been a team since way back, since you were young. I mean, you're mother and daughter, and so Mum got to
for that
hate and love.
I have to build that.
Yeah. Hey, it's paid off in the long run, right? Like, look at where you are today, and your mum's kind of handed or passed on some of that knowledge and that skill. You've been around her, around that kind of mahi, and it's kind of rubbed off on you. And now today, especially with your experience with starting different types of businesses, you understand what it takes to get a business from A to B and to get it to growing as well. So it's good. You make a good team, and that's really good. So tell us a little bit about linking people capability to strategy or a business strategy. A lot of businesses struggle with this, but why is it so important that regardless of what business size you are or what industry you're in, any business, why is it important that you link people capability to organizational strategy?
I'm a sports player, so I'm going to immediately refer to a sports or team example. But if I was to put this in the most simplest terms, it's like, well, the reason why it's so important, it would be like having a basketball team, right? And training them for weeks on weeks for a competition. And then them all of a sudden turning up at the game or at the competition and not actually understanding why they're there, which is obviously they're there to win. But that's the value that I see with linking people capability to strategy, is that you need the skills, the development of skills. But on top of that, people need to know the why, which is why they're developing those skills and how that impacts the strategy overall.
That's a really great analogy. I like that in terms of sports. Any sports, when you're playing with a team, you've got a common goal, and in a team there's different roles. Everyone has their different strengths, but it's making sure that those strengths align with the overall team, goal and strategy to win. In terms of sports, do we have the right people in the right places? Do they have the right skills, the strengths within those roles, and how they work together, not just independently? And that requires a good strategy. It requires a good coach. It requires someone who knows how to connect the dots as well, right? It could be like, I don't know, you won't train someone rugby skills in that, and when the game is actually basketball. You're playing a different game that way, right? The rugby requires a different set of skills, strategy versus basketball. And so, that's why it's important for different businesses to understand, based on the game that they play, or what strategy that, in terms of their business, their objectives, do you have the right skills that align with that strategy and with your business? So I really love that analogy.
I think what you've said is really important, because every role is important and every role contributes to business success. And you need your people to understand that their role is critical to the business being successful. And so I feel like that is the link. And if people don't know where they're going or don't have that why, they come to work for what purpose? So I was talking to 4 groups of people. We started a number of sessions yesterday. In each group, I explained this concept that linking a person to a strategy allows them to understand not only why they come to work, but the value they bring when they come to work. And to build capability, you're building the success of the business. And that's really critical for businesses to understand and link. But you have to understand the capability that you need before you can start building it. And that's the key, is you have to understand what is needed and then build that capability and drive your success that way, through people. It's always through people.
I really love that. I love how you brought it from they need to go hand in hand. Business strategy, like, there's ROI for the business, but what's the ROI for the individual as well? And you talked about the intrinsic value for them as well. People want to know the impact that they're making. How does my role and my skills, or, if I develop my skills, what's the impact that will have in terms of the business? And finding a way to measure that. So that's the beauty, right? So you can actually see you're making an impact as an individual. Rather than just seeing it from one side in terms of business, achieving outcomes. But it's like, as an individual, what are you achieving? And imagine a workforce who feel that way, and they all understand the impact that they're making individually and collectively as well.
And I think you get high engagement when you have people who know why they come to work and the value that they contribute. A long, long time ago, I worked for an organisation which is an absolute New Zealand brand. It was I shouldn't say a New Zealand brand, because it was an international brand, with a prominent branding exposure in New Zealand. And there was a guy that used to work there, and he was very strong on this. He taught me so much about the importance of making sure everybody knew their value and everybody knew how they contributed to the strategic goals. And I remember him coming through the office one day, and there was the lady that did the mail, so I can show you how long ago it was. And he asked her, this executive asked her, did she know why her job was so important? And without hesitation, this lady replied to him, knowing exactly how her job of distributing the mail contributed to the success of the business from a strategic point of view. It was amazing to actually hear it and see it in action, and that was what he drove so hard, is that everybody knew why they were there and the value that they brought to the organisation and how they linked to strategic outcomes. And that is really fundamentally Syncap's primary drive, is to do that.
That is powerful. I love it. And it's so important. And so that's good. Thank you for highlighting some of the benefits of why businesses should be able to link capability to their organizational strategy, why it's important, and especially to measure that. So why do a lot of businesses struggle with this in the first place? Like, you might have businesses out there who understand, yes, it's important, but I'm still struggling with that. Or what are some of the barriers? Why do they struggle?
I think the good thing is that the majority of businesses that we have rolled this out in is that they have amazing intentions, really good intentions. You know, they have initiatives that they are running to increase their capability. They've got these ideas. You know, they want learning hubs. So the good thing is that organisations are wanting to lift capability. So one of the common barriers with that is linking it and making sure that it all then moves back to the capability of the strategy, the organisational strategy. So that's something that Mum talked a little bit about before. And that Syncap helps put all of those good ideas together and give it meaning, that then helps build the direction of the strategy. I think that another reason that people struggle is they don't actually know the level of their capabilities within their organisation. And oftentimes it's one of their first times of even assessing their capability. So they just don't know where their current capability sits with each of their individuals or staff members. I think another one is also the depth or the lack of depth in the scoring card that they have. We personally believe here at Syncap that those scorecards need to reflect at least some skills or a vision of what the business would see that skill at. And so having beginner or exceeds or passes communication, that doesn't necessarily say enough about their skill level. So what does that actual capability look like for that person? And give some detail or context to what that capability looks like.
So basically one of the biggest things I'm hearing is they don't know what their current capability is at the moment. Right? It's almost just chucking anyone on the basketball court just to play the game and good luck. We don't know what your strengths are. Just jump in the game. I don't know what you're good at. I don't know if you can shoot, but just jump in the game and play anyway. Right? That you're almost just winging it a little bit if you don't really understand the current skill level and the capability of your workforce. And you need to be able to measure that, and you need a good starting point. So if your business strategy is to go from A to B, what are the skills that's going to take us there? But where are we at the moment? So we know what we need to focus on and develop, right, to get us from A to B as a business. So yeah, I love that. It's important. So I guess that's one of the barriers. Any other challenges why businesses struggle with linking capability to strategy?
I think that businesses, as Sandra said, really want to build capability. I've never come across a business that doesn't, but they tend to be reactive to building capability. They identify an immediate need and respond, and some very effectively. But we're trying to get them into the driving seat to drive capability and drive success in their business. So that's the difference. And the challenge is like Sandra said, they don't know their starting point because they haven't had a really thorough ability to assess what their current capability is versus what they need for the future. And to get on steady ground, whether you want a fast-paced approach or a steady approach, you have to have that solid ground and you have to know your starting point. And so you need to understand your starting point first to then be able to move and drive rather than respond and react. And that's what Syncap does, is change that to they are in the driving seat and they are driving capability to the future for the organisation. And I think that challenges bringing all the good things together. They have big challenges in that. They don't know how, and that's what the framework offers them. There's the how. And I think the other thing is what Sandra spoke about is where is their starting point? Do they actually really know what their starting point is? And do they understand the needs that they have from that strategic planning? Like, what capability do we need to meet these strategic outcomes? And it's the question I ask executive teams all the time. What capability do you need to reach your strategic outcomes? And get them to define it, so that we can then go back into the business and say, we need this set of core capabilities to be successful. And I think that's the starting point. It's that starting point. Once they've got the starting point, they're away. They're off. They really are. It's great to see. But the starting points can be a bit of work, and that's the effort that needs to be put in.
I think that's a great question, even for our listeners out there to reflect on is, what core capabilities do you need to help you achieve your business objectives or business strategy?
Yes.
What are the core capabilities that you need? And maybe help us walk through that. Like, what's the journey there? How do you help people understand what are their core capabilities that they need? Like, what are some other questions that they kind of need to ask themselves to figure that out? Because some of them might not even know. So what would be the next step?
I think it's actually getting them to understand what capabilities are, because everyone has a different version of it, of course. And also breaking it down that it's not one set of capabilities. There's the skill-based capabilities, which is your technical skills. And then there's your, what I call business outcome capabilities, which are more around the process of doing things that result in an outcome for the business. And then there's the behavioural capabilities. And Sandra can talk a bit more about the behavioural capabilities, because there's a lot of research on this, in particular the behavioural capabilities being the dominant capabilities that people need to build in organisations for the future. And she can talk a little bit about that herself, but it is actually getting them to understand that capabilities aren't just generic. They are for their business. What's good for their business is not necessarily for the one down the road, and that they're broken into 3 categories. And which do you want to, which are very prominent in your strategy. So, for example, if you have a greenfield strategy, so you're going off into new markets, new products, that sort of thing, you're going to need that adventurous type of people in there. You're going to need people that can cold call, that can actually build from the ground up. And so you're going to need innovative ways of looking at things. And so those then get a set of capabilities that you need to create that excitement and ability to do the greenfields thing. But that might not be the same capabilities, and it wouldn't be the same capabilities if you are in a strategy as steady as you go type of strategy. So consolidation and that sort of thing. That's a different set of capabilities the organisation needs. And that's why you need that alignment, because that alignment will drive the success.
I love that. So there are different definitions out there,
Yes.
or versions of what capability is. So you help them define what that is.
Yeah.
And it sounds like there's 3 categories
Yeah.
around that you help them. So tell us a little bit more about the process then, in terms of how do you help businesses, understand their capability, and how do you help them bridge the gap and link that to their business strategy and to come up with some sort of plan?
Yeah, so about the behavioural-based capabilities, something that's really interesting at the moment, and I think this has been happening for a number of years, so it's not like it just has recently happened this year, but we're starting to see an increase in organisations that are wanting those behavioural capabilities. So, yeah, we've got the technical capabilities, of course, and your outcome-focused capabilities as well, but we are seeing an emergence of more soft skills that are needing to be developed to execute on the organisational strategy. And you can simply Google right now the number of studies that are being done on the rise of soft skills in organisations. And this, I know, is quite common at Zeducation. You offer the assertiveness and confidence, which is one of the first programs. Wellbeing is one of the first programs. And so we're seeing a really big shift. And what's great about the Syncap framework is that you can measure these soft skills because it's not there's not really many common ways of measuring soft skills like that, like listening. So Syncap allows for an organisation to see where these levels of capabilities are, which is exciting. I also, just to go back on, you're asking about the steps for Syncap, and Mum talked a little bit about identifying capabilities. I think even taking it back a step is do you understand your strategy? Do you know what outcomes you're trying to achieve? I know that Mum talked a little bit about that, but it actually, you have to make sure that you understand your strategy, because if you don't understand your strategy and then go towards identifying capabilities, they might not align. So definitely you need to understand your strategy very well. Identifying capabilities, something that we've seen, it's very tempting to do lots, because you're a business and you see so many opportunity, right? But one thing that we often recommend is identifying or sifting down those 20 or 30 capabilities that you can think of to a good core 6 or 8 for your overarching organisation. So asking the question, what are the 6 to 8 capabilities that are crucial for achieving your strategic direction? And then once you've done that, looking and asking those similar questions for each of the roles within your organisation or departments, what key skills? Because the great thing about this is that people capability framework should be active and consistent and constant. It's not just a one-off, because strategy changes as well. So doing that, identifying which ones are relevant for this current period for each of your departments, and then going from there and developing. And we show on our website how we develop our scorecards, how we assess them. But that is the real core piece of work, is ensuring that you understand those things first. Yeah.
I love it. It's important for business to start. You start with the strategy first, defining what that is. What are your objectives? Where do you want to go? What are you trying to achieve? Then what are the capabilities or the skills that's going to help us achieve those objectives? And it's not just any capabilities. We can list 100, but it's what are the core or the critical capabilities that's going to help us achieve our success or our business strategy, right? And it sounds like you've got a bit of a process that you help them to understand and filter out and identify the core critical capabilities that will help them achieve that business success. So that's really good. It makes absolute sense. Maybe talk a little bit about Syncap, because obviously Syncap has its own framework. You provide a solution that's a little bit more different than others. So talk a little bit about the framework at Syncap.
I touched a little bit on it before. But the main concept of the framework is that it's continuous and that it should penetrate every part of your business. So we talked about firstly understanding your strategy, going into identifying your capabilities, and then how do those capabilities impact every part of your business? So it's from the very beginning as well, recruitment. How can we implement capability-focused recruitment? Can we ensure that the questions that we ask when we're recruiting reflect the capabilities that we currently need within the organisation? So it's those types of questions from recruitment. Then it's looking and saying, okay, what are the needs then? What are the gaps? So we talked a little bit about the gaps. What skills are required or needed that need development? So that's from an individual and also a team aspect as well. And those things aren't, it doesn't mean that everyone does a 5-hour course, to build the skill. It could simply be that a team member might be stronger in that skill, so that the person that's slightly weaker, or I wouldn't say weaker, or needs that development, can spend time with that person. And so it's identifying that and then saying, okay, where does talent management fit within this? Are there pathways for these individuals that want to either, if they want to go up in the business, if they want to be the manager, or if they want to sidestep and do something different? Where are the pathways? Do they have pathways for them? And Syncap, as part of our framework, includes that and shows people or the organisation what they need to do. And then simply as well, or most importantly, is return on investment. I think everyone knows that learning and development is important within your business. But what is some data? Show me what is something that we can prove that the investment that we're putting into our people is really worth what we're doing. And Syncap provides some clear data. I think one of the main things, and Mum also talked about it before, is this is all about the people. This is about enhancing, it's a very common phrase, mana enhancing. This is a mana enhancing framework that allows people to take responsibility because they're involved in the process. So if I'm an individual, I can know what I need to do, what learning and development I need. And then you've also got a manager that also understands that and can support it and encourage it and find opportunities for that person to grow.
I like that. So it sounds like a framework or a tool that business can use to obviously help identify the capabilities that they need, help link those capabilities to the business strategy. But it's a tool that you can use to help with recruitment so that when you're hiring the right skills or based on the right skills that you need. It can help with development and training, so upskilling your current workforce. Where's the starting point, identifying the starting point and where you need to take them. So it sounds like a tool that a lot of HR and L&D people can definitely use, eh?
Absolutely. And I think the most rewarding thing is when you see a team or an individual that gets presented with this framework and you see the looks on their faces of like, yes, I have a pathway, that's the most exciting thing for them. And that immediately gets staff engaged because they know that there's a pathway, there's opportunity for me. And that's empowering. And if imagine an organisation where everyone understands their pathway, and not everyone has to be on it. People can just simply love their job, and not want to move. But there are people that want to. And so imagine an organisation where everyone knows that and can see where they're going and how they contribute to the strategy.
And so who in the business do you normally work with to help bring this to life? Is it HR, L&D, the CEO? Like maybe talk a little bit about that in terms of who are the people in the business that are critical to helping the Syncap framework work and linking capability to the strategy.
Predominantly, we work with the CEO and the executive team first. They are crucial for getting this on board and working and running. They're the visionaries. They know the business. They know the weaknesses. They know the strengths. So them first. Often we work with them first. We get their input and how they envision their capabilities, what capabilities they're requiring. And then after that, we often are with our middle managers and supporting them and helping them have the tools to guide their people. So I think our main approach really is to ensure that we're empowering these leaders, because at the end of the day, they're going to be running it and believing in it.
That makes sense. I mean, it comes back to what you said earlier around it starts with business strategy first. So who looks after the business strategy? The CEO, normally people, the C-suite, right? The decision makers, people who are responsible and accountable for the business strategy and defining that. And then, they're the decision makers, like, yep, cool, yep, I'm happy with that. The Syncap, there's a strategy. Then it comes to the execution of that strategy or the Syncap framework. And that's where you work with the middle managers because they're the ones who are directly working with the people. And so they're the ones who bring it to life and make it work. So it sounds like you start at the top and then you roll it out, middle managers and onwards. So you basically work with everyone. Syncap involves everyone.
Okay, yeah, I agree. We work with executive teams because they are the strategic directors of a business. And so they determine the strategy and that's it. They determine that strategy. They determine the capabilities. And then we really work alongside the people and capability managers, HR managers, They are the key to actually getting access to the rest of the business. Couldn't live without them, to be honest, but they are often at that executive table as well. So we tend to classify them as part of the executive team, and then we move into the business after that. And sometimes we move through all at once, or sometimes in sections, so that they can see the return on the investment as they go, which I quite like that idea for businesses, so that they can do that. But in a nutshell, it's the executive team, anybody that's doing the strategic direction, and the people capability managers, but I tend to classify them as part of the executive team.
Awesome. So thank you for sharing that. It's good to understand how Syncap works, and also who's involved to make this come to life as well within their business. Talk a little bit about the role of the recruitment. I'd like to understand that a little bit more in terms of how does Syncap help support recruitment within a business?
Yeah, it's a powerful tool for recruitment. If you think about understanding the capabilities you need for each role and the level of capability you need for each role, you then turn that into your primary questions that you ask an individual. So if you're asking an individual a capability question, they answer it, you can then determine their capability and score their capability before you've even got them in the door. So what it does change is that when you have a person come in the door, you already know their learning and development plan. Because when you ask those questions, you're able to gauge the level of capability they have in the areas that are important. And you might have identified one and said, okay, they definitely are not where we want them to be there, but we can absolutely see the potential. When they walk in the door, they are on an immediate learning and development pathway to reach that capability expectation that we have for them quickly. So it changes from traditionally somebody coming in the door, let's work a little while, oh yes, you've been here 3 months, and we see that we can give you this training and this training. It really gets people's productivity up way quicker. So they come in the door, we identified these training and development, or this learning and development that you need, and here's your pathway, so that they are immediately growing as they walk in the door, because you know before they walked in. And that's the power behind capability-based recruitment. And if you can home in on that and really identify it key, you'll get the right people in at the right time, doing the right thing, and you are getting them to full productivity, way quicker than let's see how they go approach, or let's see how they fit in, or let's give them some time. Bring them in, get them in their learning development pathway, and do that. Just envelope them into the Syncap cycle, and watch them grow fast. And that's what you want. You want productivity, and you want to get your money's worth out of that person, to be honest, and you want to get more. You want added value. And if you're going to develop them as they walk in the door, that's where you're going to get your added value. And that's the power behind capability-based recruitment.
I really like that, because normally businesses, when it comes to recruitment, I mean, you look at the CV, you check their referees, and you kind of gauge from their history or what you see on LinkedIn what their skill capabilities are based on that. But your one's a little bit more detailed, because you've already created using the framework, the strategy, everything already connects back to the strategy. So you've already defined the capabilities that you want for your business. So when it goes time for hiring, you're hiring looking for those specific skills that you've already defined. And I don't know if it's based on what you're saying, it's an assessment or a self-assessment that you help gauge whether they've got the skills, and whether and what the gap is in terms of where they are and the skills that you're looking for the business. So and normally, I remember when I started other jobs in corporate, normally the assessment that I do before I get into the business is a personality one, normally, and other bits and pieces, but never really about my skills specifically. That's more on the CV and the referees. So this is definitely something I don't feel like is really emphasized out there in the market or in businesses today. So well done. I think that's pretty neat.
I think another thing to add to that is that if you look at the current job market, this approach often has to occur because when people aren't getting the skills, or the people applying for the jobs don't have the skills yet. That's currently it. We're not able to hire. We've got jobs, but people don't have the correct skills.
Right.
And so, given the current job market, this sort of approach where you can pick up the skills that they need developed early on is a huge asset to the business. Your return on investing, because I think recruitment is a pretty big investment, the return can be quite quick, and you can get them to where they need to be quite quickly as well. And we know this from just from the work that we're currently doing. People are hiring if you're willing. If you're willing to develop the skill, they're hiring. So having that structure is extremely beneficial. Yeah.
Well, definitely. I see a lot of value in that, just hearing about it. You're high in quality as well. You don't just want to put a bum on a seat. You want to put like someone who's actually got skills and got potential to stay in there and be developed and trained as well. So you're high in quality, not just quantity. So I think it's awesome. Hey, thank you so much for sharing a lot about Syncap, the benefits of it, and how you can link and why it's important to link people capability to business strategy. So before we wrap up the podcast, some final words from both of you, just some final tips to our listeners out there around linking capability to business strategy. Any tips or recommendations?
I think believe.
Yeah.
Believe that it's a need.
Yeah.
That's where it starts. Yeah. So one of the tips that I would say based on just one of the tips that I have would be for an organisation to believe that this is important. When you have a belief in your people and that they need to be developed and that they need to know their why, things happen. And as we've mentioned before, this is a continual cycle. So be passionate about it, and passionate enough to know the value and continue to implement it.
Love it.
So a couple of tips that I would do and give to everybody is don't try and do everything at once. Just do one step at a time. Build your capability program at the speed that you are able to and that you have the resources for. Don't try and solve world hunger. Just take it one step at a time. I think the other one is start building your foundation. Understand your current capability before you try and jump into future capability. Actually understand your starting point. It might be different than you think, and it often is. And that would probably be the words of wisdom that I would give, is understand your current capability. Then you've got a good foundation to move forward. Don't try and leap ahead.
Love it. Some great advice. And if people want to learn more about Syncap or get in touch with you and get more support around people capability, how can they do that?
We love going out to have hot chocolate and coffees.
Of course.
So our number one port of call is contact us via email or through our website, and let's catch up. Have a coffee or a hot chocolate at a cafe and talk about what are some of the needs that you may have within your organisation.
Awesome. There you go. And you can reach them on their website, www.syncap, so syncapnz.com. Awesome. And they love hot chocolates. There you go. So thank you so much for your time, blessing our listeners and providing value and highlighting the importance of why you should link people capability to business strategy and how you can do that. Thank you so much. Renata and Sandra Haufano, co-founders of Syncap. Thank you so much for your time.